This will be a very fast video on the basics on Python, which is print and the very basics of variables. So firstly, variables. What are variables? If you have learned a programming language before, you would know what variable is. Variables are essentially using letters or words to store an integer or a string. Integer being numbers, strings being words, sentences, well, technically just, stuff in the dictionary. Or not in the dictionary. Anyways, like you can say it's one character, multiple characters. Punctuation are also allowed. They are essential in coding, not any less so in Python. So they basically represent stuff. So variables can represent stuff so that you can call the stuff up faster, or you could use variables to like keep logs on perhaps points if you're making a point system game, or turns. Well, essentially variables can do a lot in coding, and they are also quite convenient. It makes the game much more convenient, right? And it can save you like a lot of code. You could just think of them as algebra, as like the letters in algebra. So how do I make a variable? In Python, making variables are very easy. You just need to enter the variable in the format below. So variable name equals input. Some examples are t equals 4, a random variable equals quotation mark word, and character and current underscore name equals a random string. So you do take note of these underscores, don't you? So these underscores mean that are like connectors to spaces. Like first, I would just like to notify you that variables cannot be made up of like spaces. Like this will not be a variable. This cannot be a variable. Nor this. You do take note of these quotation marks too. So these quotation marks are to show that this entire thing inside the quotation marks is a string. So they're going to define this variable as this string. Basically, this bunch of stuff inside the quotation marks will be stored inside this variable. So this also cannot be a variable. If you do not put the quotation marks, the code reader would interpret this as either a bunch of functions or a variable. And since variable cannot contain spaces, even if you put the underscores, unless you have such a variable, it will not work out. So if you want to print strings, you have to put these quotation marks. Here are some examples. A equals 10, defining A to the value of 10. P equals quotation marks 10 also works out. But then it will define P as a string of 10 and not an integer of 10. So this A is an integer and this P is a string. For now, the difference does not matter in terms of variables being integers or strings, but later on you'll notice some problems if you use this. So if you want to have an integer, you should probably just use this, unless you need to use this in certain special situations. So a variable equals this is a string. So this variable is defined as this string. Now print function. To output stuff in Python, you need to use the print function. So notice how I put the formats. You don't have to put this first. So this print brackets. You have to put the brackets. It does not work if you do this. No, this does not work. This works. So what does this, how do you use this print? So print basically will send a message in a terminal. So this is how it will work out. So I want to print some text. I'll just show you a demonstration of how print works first. And then I'll show you how to do it. So see, now we'll just delete this first. Run this. See, so it came out as text demonstration. Alright. So now how do we print stuff? So-called print stuff, but technically output, never mind. So to output a string in Python, you use print text function. So this text you can replace with whatever text you want to print out. Then you have to add the quotation marks. The quotation marks, as I said, helps to define the text inside a string. So you have the Python will print out the text in between the quotation marks using the print function. Example, in your code you put print this text will be displayed in a terminal, and then the terminal will show this text will be displayed in a terminal. So the terminal is basically this thing that operates your code when you run it. So some examples of prints in string: print hello, print hello there. So basically you print one word, you can print two words, but remember, if what you're printing is a string, put quotation marks. Just define it as a string. Next, to output an integer, so you just need to put print number. You can also put quotation marks around the number. It would not affect anything, but as I said, yes, if your variable is an integer and if your variable is a string, even if the value is the same, it might affect your code. And now, to output a variable, you use print variable function, this. So you do not need to put quotation marks because it's a variable, which is technically you could consider it a function in this particular piece of code already. So these are some examples of printing variables. I have already defined A and P, so I just do print A and print P. And I can also print this string, this variable that contains a string, using print the variable name. Note that this will not work if you put quotation marks, because this will be recognized as a string and they will print whatever is inside the quotation marks. So I'm just going to clear this first. So firstly, this hello there, and this 10 and 10, they look the same, but in your code they might. In future code tutorials, it might affect what you are trying to do, because integers and strings might operate differently. Next, a variable is defined as this is string, so you can also print string variables containing strings like this. This is string, and this is why quotation marks do not work, because you'll print whatever it is inside the quotation marks. Yeah, that's all.